happy to be here with you, happy to be in this leadership circle community. And as I'm looking at my screen, I obviously see just a little number of people, but out of these people, I'm seeing those who are really masters in leadership circle profile. Just looking at you, Vinay, there, not wanting to put you on a spotlight, but still looking at you, waving at you. And I can also see some of the people who I know who are fresh coaches and probably very much interested, if not even signed up to start the certification. I can see Vladimir smiling back at me, and I can see Yasmina there. So a few people from my region. Carla, hello, Carla. And so many other people. Thank you so much for coming to this webinar. And let's make it a conversation in the community between those people who are really seasoned practitioners of LCP, but also those people who are yet to become seasoned practitioners of LCP and who are thinking of diving a little bit deeper into this wonderful, wonderful philosophy. I'm on purpose not calling it a tool, but a philosophy and a way of looking at life and leadership.
Yeah, I just want to say that something that was amazing is that this time we have almost 800 people registered for this event, which is amazing. We know the community wants to be together, and we cannot have better representation than you. So thank you for accepting the invitation and for bringing all of these followers as well, because you have them to listen to you, and thank you for the invitation to make this a conversation. So I think 35 minutes after the hour, this is a good moment to start. Thank you for coming again.
Thank you. Thank you, Carolina. So we can actually start. We can start this conversation. We have entitled this conversation Crafting Credibility. And I know that so many of us could be speaking about how to craft credibility together with LCP in our practice from so many different perspectives. So this conversation is by no means the manual that I'm offering. It's simply my experience and my perspective of how I believe I've crafted credibility by using LCP, and in what way have I looked at LCP, and I'm still looking at LCP as I'm using it today, that helps me show up as a credible practitioner of this wonderful philosophy. So basically, what we're going to be speaking about today, we're going to look at that credibility from three different perspectives. I'm going to share some of my experiences, and I'm also going to invite you to join in the conversation and share some of your experiences. You can be using chat, or you can be just voicing things out, whatever works for you as we're moving forward. Hopefully, the technology will not disappoint us. I love to say, honestly, that I'm a tech idiot, and I think this proved now at the beginning of our conversation here today, because it was one screen here, one screen there, but hopefully you can all see the presentation right now, and everything's going smoothly so far. So here are the three things, almost like three perspectives or three doorways through which we are going to enter the conversation of leadership circle profile, right? One of them, the first one, is navigating the blind spots through structured feedback that leadership circle profile gives us. And the point that I'll try to make is that LCP is very informative in what it offers, but we should not forget that it's actually very transformative in how it offers that feedback, which is basically that behind all the data that we get access to when we see someone's profile, it's really about our capability and willingness to see the story behind, to be able to support the meaningful change. So that's the first thing that we're going to visit. Then the second thing is engaging with the client's resistance. How do we work with the client's resistance rather than work against client's resistance? If we have a 360 that it's so transformative as LCP is, of course we're going to expect to see resistance. Somebody told me a long time ago, Zana, you're in the business of change. you better get used to resistance because it's just going to be here all the time, right? So how do we work with that? How do we facilitate change rather than force change? That's another perspective I want to be looking at while using the LCP. And the third thing is using the LCP as our own mirror, right? When we get a profile, results from our clients, what does it say about us? And how can we use the LCP as the platform for our own growth? Because if we're not looking at that perspective, we're actually taking away of so much of magic that LCP is offering to us. So if you take a look at these 3 points, you'll actually realize that we're speaking about what we have as a tool or as a philosophy, in what way the data is organized. So actually, what is it that we have? How we work with that, in terms of how we work with the resistance that it's inevitably going to show up, and who we are, last but definitely not least, who we are as we're working with this tool, as we're working with our clients. Looking at these 3 key elements, I believe, and diving deep and taking them seriously and with responsibility and ethics, I believe that's a good way to craft credibility in our own practice. But before we move on and we start kind of unpacking each of these 3 elements, let's see who we have in the room, because I think there's quite a mixture of people in the room, in terms of some people being seasoned practitioners, maybe some people being fresh practitioners, but then again, some people also not being practitioners at all. So we have kind of divided the poll into 2 things, 2 elements, those people who are practitioners and those people who are aspiring practitioners. So I'm going to hand it over to Melissa or Francisca at this point to just put up the poll, and we kindly ask you to answer it. So just that we see who we have in the room.
Do you confirm you see the poll?
I can see it on my end, and I can see that it's working.
Perfect. Awesome.
People are seeing it.
Let's give it a minute. And
yeah, it's still moving. So far, we have a little bit less than 30% of those people who are already practitioners, and then 70 plus. That's changing a little bit. Let's see. But I think already by the results that we're getting, we can see that we're in the room already who aspire to be practitioners. I can just see a few comments in the chat that some people don't see the poll.
well, there are some comments about not being seasoned, but that will come with time.
Yes.
And
yeah,
there's someone that doesn't see the poll, but
yeah, I think they see it now, at least.
It could be that you joined after we launched it, which is not a problem. This is for us and for you to have a little bit of context of who is in the room, but no problem if you don't receive it.
Yeah, that's okay. This is just for us. This is just for me to kind of feel, you know, the energy in the room, feel who's here, right? Because there'll be different perspectives probably. And just to check how many people we have that still feel there's a lot to learn around LCP, or maybe there's yet to be certified. And obviously, there are some people who have been using it.
Perfect. 30 more.
I'm using it.
30 more seconds, and then we can close it.
Wonderful. Yes, I would definitely agree with you on that. Always more to learn about LCP, regardless of experience. I believe there's a moment when you, or at least it happened to me, when I felt, now I'm really confident. And then there's a profile that kind of makes me stop. Oh God, okay, what do I do now? Let me reach out to some of the colleagues. Luckily, we have a huge community, so we can always reach out to someone, and obviously respecting the confidentiality of the client, just have a little bit of conversation that can help us debrief some of the more challenging profiles for us. Wonderful. So 26% of seasoned LCP practitioners and 74% of aspiring LCP practitioners. And by the chat, we're understanding that in 74%, there are those people who are also certified, but might feel they need to learn more, right? Or they need to become more experienced. Okay, and then there's another one that we would love to put out there and ask you. Out of those three things that we listed at the very beginning, so LCP as a structured feedback, then working with the resistance, and then the third thing, LCP being a coach's mirror, what are you most curious about? So where does your curiosity go when speaking about these three key elements for us today?
Please confirm that you can see the poll.
I think there are a few thumbs up.
Perfect.
Wonderful. People are seeing the poll. It's moving for the time being. And it feels there's almost like an equal interest in between those three elements. Maybe resistance is a little bit leading. We all want to know the secrets to work with resistance, because I'm guessing that we're seeing a lot of resistance as we're applying this tool to our clients. The deeper the potential of transformation, the bigger the resistance, I guess. So structured feedback, 31%, resistance 44%, and coach's mirror 25%, right? Even though there are differences in between these three, I actually, what I'm happy to see is that there's almost a shared volume of attention, if you like, in all three of these elements, which means that we're not neglecting any of them, not what we have as a feedback, not how we work with that in terms of facilitating change, and not only who we are as we're working with that. So how can we use this as our mirror? Okay, we are going to stop sharing that now, and we're going to go into the first element of what we said at the very beginning. So navigating the blind spots, feedback that we get through LCP that drives meaningful change. The other day, I actually got hold of something that I think we can call Peter's block calendar. I even printed it out in a calendar, and it's got lovely questions and lovely thoughts. And one of the thoughts shared here says, if you look at the great leaders throughout history, you see a consciousness of their own limitations that was essential to their greatness. So you see a consciousness of their own limitations that was essential to their greatness. I think that we can use these words to draw a parallel with what we probably want for our clients, among other things, a consciousness, an LCP to support them in upgrading their consciousness of their own limitations that will eventually contribute to their greatness, right? So you remember that at the very beginning, I said LCP is informative in what it offers, right? But transformative in how it presents the data. So here there'll be different perspectives and different experiences, but I want to really have a simple view on this. LCP is a complex tool, and it can be at moments even overwhelming. It offers a great volume of data. And I believe as practitioners, we're always at choice. We can look at this great volume of data and kind of try and explain bit by bit that we see, or we can look at it and try and understand what is the story behind this data. How is it that this data is playing out together that helps us see the story that we need to offer and actually explore together with our clients? So one of the things that I really, really love to work with when I have an LCP of my clients, it is the range. I believe LCP, with all the structured feedback, actually offers us a great opportunity to see the range of our clients, if we are willing to see that range. What do I mean by that? Very simplistic thing, yet proved to be very powerful in my practice. We have the self-evaluation of our clients, and we have a number of categories, and we see the identity of our client through their own eyes, but also through the eyes of other evaluators, other categories. And it's so easy, even for our clients, depending on the results, to slip into the territory of, okay, what's right, what's wrong here, right? Which of these identities is the right one, right? Am I right against everyone else, providing that the other evaluators have offered an aligned feedback? Or how many of me are here? How many of my own identities exist here? So this is, for me, the opportunity to actually invite the client to see their full range. All of this is you. There's nothing that's right or wrong. It is the way we see it, depending on the relationships in which you're in, depending on the circumstances, but that's your full range. So there's something about, we can even call it basically a multiple identity truths, right? A truth from my own perspective, a truth from the perspective of my boss, a truth from the perspective of my peers. What happens for our client as we invite them to navigate in that way? What opens up for that client? I love the quote that you can see on the slide. I am, two of the most powerful words for what we put after them shapes reality, right? But what if what's put after them is conflicting, right? What if what I put after them and what another group of evaluators has put after them is conflicting? How can I stay with that polarity within myself, within my own identity, right? Now, imagine what kind of conversations we can have from that perspective, as opposed to, let's see either or. What's true here, right? What's the image that we love more? Or maybe let's just say, okay, let's pick the most beautiful image and I'll work towards that. What about, let's pick the holistic view and see how that moves before I even set any of the goals. The second thing that I love working with are the tensions or some of the opposing forces, right? How do some of the things come into play? And sometimes in my own experience, I didn't even see these tensions existing as such until I've opened the conversation with my clients, right? And then in that conversation, in that story sharing, in that exploration, we get to realize what are some of those tendencies. There might be tendencies just on the reactive end, or there might be a reactive tendency and a creative competency that are in some sort of an opposing tension. And I'll give you the example from my practice, right? So many times, the tension in profile that kind of got, I don't know what that says about me, but there was a tension that got with my clients between pleasing and courageous authenticity.
Entre ahora y un par de días.
I think somebody is speaking.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Dos.
Let's just work with what's in the space. Right? So if you hear us, whoever's speaking Spanish, maybe if you can mute yourself. Thank you for that. Right, so pleasing and courageous authenticity. And so many times what happened for me is that some of my clients were already aware of some of the reactive tendencies that they had. Pleasing, okay, again, I know this. I've known this for years, right? I know that I should be less pleasing, But until we open up the conversation around in service of what, it's really, really difficult to actually stay with that reactive tendency and do what with it. But if we put it in tension with something else, well, in service of more courageous authenticity, well, then the path to development becomes easier, more accessible, more exciting in that sense. I've seen other tensions as well, passive and autocratic. I'm being overly passive at the risk of being even a little bit autocratic, right? Many other tensions, but I'm going to stop speaking now just for a moment, and I want to check with you what might be some of the tensions that you have come up, and this is now obviously a question for those people who are practitioners, regardless of more or less experience, it doesn't matter. What might be some of the tensions that you were noticing in the profiles of your clients, and how did that work go? And you can put your hand up if you want to speak, or you can put it in the chat, whatever works for you. I'm just going to ask Francisca and Melissa to help me spot people who have put their hand up.
Of course. If you want Zana to rephrase or repeat the question, just in case.
Yeah, what might be some of the tensions that you have found in your work with your own clients? And
Well,
as I'm saying this, I'm sorry, Melissa, I'm also noticing one of the very important questions there around recognizing the limitations of only working with a client self-assessment who doesn't want to commit yet to the 360 side of LCP. How limited are the benefits of the LCP, and how can we influence the commitment to go all in? I love this question, because I also have my own opinion around the self-assessment, and I'm kind of never sure, never in agreement with myself of whether to put the self-assessment there or to allow for the whole story to cook a little bit more until I manage to invite the client to do the full assessment, right? But I would bring here the story of the range. Now you see yourself through your own perspective. Imagine the range of your own identity that would be available to you if we invited some other evaluators to join in here, right? So imagine this is almost like just walking through the world with one eye open, right? And actually having a completely healthy eye, but not wanting to open it and to see the full picture of who you are and how you show up. Francisco. Hello, Francisco. Love to see you. I think you led my balance course in another coaching school. Lots of oscillation between people-pleasing and perfectionism. Yes, okay. So that can be another tension and kind of inner conflict between complying and controlling, right? I want things to be perfect. I want to make them my own way, the way I believe they need to be. And when people don't like that, I kind of feel responsible for how they feel, and I feel the urge to make them feel happy so they like me, right? A lot of tensions there. And this is just one of the stories. It doesn't have to be equal story for all of the tensions, right? Arrogance, what was that? Arrogance versus mentoring and developing. Yeah, exactly. So this was my learning, I remember, as a fresh practitioner. So for instance, looking at the arrogance, it's something on the protecting end, right? And kind of I was looking for the tension in the authenticity, creative end. But then I realized, wait a second, these tensions can go everywhere, right? It depends upon the specific story of that client. So it means it depends upon our openness to enter that debriefing process with our full curiosity and our coaching mindset. So to know how things work from the theoretical point of view, but also to be open to hear the story, right? It reminds me of that quote, which probably won't be able to say word by word, but there's something about learn the rules like a professional and then break them like the master, right? So breaking those rules like the master is actually allowing that space to be filled in by your clients and their stories, in which conversation we're making sense of how all these dimensions work together and what is the story that they are telling us. Okay, wonderful. Being aware of the time, we're going to move on. Once again, I'm underlying, for me, the key message here. LCP is very informative in what it offers and very transformative in actually how it presents that data, right? So it's up to us to actually be open to see in what ways these data can be explored and discussed. The second thing, engaging with resistance. I think a lot of you said before that you're really curious about the resistance. And I think for all of us who have been working with LCP, we have had a number of opportunities to see our clients' resistance that can show up in a number of ways. It's also never the same. And I think here there's an important message for those who are aspiring to become LCP practitioners, because I would love everyone to not be discouraged by the resistance, but to actually take it as a gift, as a gold, something that we can work with. If people are resisting, imagine that there's something so important for them behind. They're not taking it lightheartedly, they're all in, they're resisting something because something matters so much. And if we are capable of facilitating that change and working with the resistance, making that disturbance our ally in the process of debriefing LCP, if we're capable of doing that and willing of doing that, then imagine what kind of transformation we can create at the very end. Now, here is the thing from the book Mastering Leadership that I really, really love. I love obviously many things from that book, but here's something that I want to offer now. In this journey from reactive to creative, you are not asked to become different. You are asked to mature your gift, right? So in this journey, you're not asked to become different. Now, just imagine for a moment, how many times have we personally heard in our own lives, you're not asked to be different, right? Oh, Zana, you're not asked to be different. Carolina, you're not asked to be different, right? Doesn't it, I mean, doesn't it feel kind of soothing in a way? Oh, I'm not asked to be different. I'm only asked to mature my gift. So first of all, somebody is telling me that I've got a gift, if nothing else. And the second thing, what do you hear? I know exactly what I hear in this, you're not asked to become any different. Sentence, what would that word be? Put it in the chat. Be yourself, acceptance, exactly. Be yourself, acceptance, authentic. Permission. Thank you, Anita. There's another name from my region that I'm noticing. Permission, and that's the word that I love. And compassion, of course. How can we ever give permission to someone to exist the way they are if we don't feel some compassion towards them, right? So here's how I want to describe LCP in this kind of playground. I think LCP brings both permission and vision to our clients. It brings permission for them to be who they are, and at the same time, it brings vision of themselves to them to become their next level selves, to mature their gifts. Now, here is the thing. If we don't start from that permission, we're going to have hard times working with change because we will be working against resistance, right? If we don't show that permission with all those lovely words that you've put there, acceptance, compassion, authenticity, right? If we don't start by, I see you, I hear you for who you are now, and I want to support you in going places, right? some of the basic things in coaching. Meet me where I am, and then take me places. So maybe just to take that a little bit to ourselves, you remember when was the last time that you were met in this way, that somebody met you where you are and then took you places. Maybe you remember your own debrief of LCP. Maybe there is a retake that you also had. So remember those elements. I can see people are looking up there, remembering those things. For those people who are aspiring practitioners, if you decide to join us into this community, we promise you're going to go through this wonderful experience yourselves of having your own LCP that's going to be debriefed, and hopefully your coach is going to meet you where you are to be able to take you places, right? So maybe if we hear just a few things in the chat, so maybe if you want to voice them out. Do you remember your own LCP debrief? And do you remember, what was that like? Was there a permission that you started from to be taken then places? So what was that like? Ah, I love this, Charlotte. Of course, meet, reveal, and align, even in some other schools and in some other methodologies. Meeting before inviting on a balcony to see through other lenses. Wonderful. Ah, I love this. Who is this? Carol? Eye-opening to acknowledge where I was, which made me hungry to learn where I could go next. Wonderful. Now you see the amount of permission here. Where I am, if you meet me where I am, there's a great chance you'll make me hungry to see, okay, where I can go next, right? If you don't meet me where I am, you put me in a position to defend myself. And then all that lovely potential in the creative end, all that vision of who I can become, even furthermore, will go wasted. Personal connection first, then caring. Wonderful. Wonderful. I can see one of the comments. It was one of the most insightful tools I have ever received, taking it as you're changing your careers, and it gives you a clear picture. So giving approaching my clients with permission doesn't mean building a rosy picture, right? It is what it is. That's it. The only thing is that that's okay as a starting point. Where do you want to go from here, right? But we can't have that conversation unless we stop in the permission land. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. And there are choice. I love this. I would offer, it's giving the client the opportunity to consider higher expressions of themselves, and they are at choice and do not need to change. I love that perspective. For me, that's the essence of permission, because anyhow, have you ever tried to change someone, and how did that go? I guess not good, right? So we can't change other people, right? So we can only offer them the opportunity, meet them where they are, hold up a mirror, and invite them to envision for themselves what is it that they want to do, or how do they want to develop next. And I guess that all of us have experienced that some clients jumped right in and they worked on their own transformation, but for some clients, it took a little bit more time, right? And that's okay as well. Wonderful. Nadesha, still with a question that the debriefer said, what does it cost you to maintain this ratio between creative and reactive? So much space to ponder on that. So many questions when we debriefing LCP is what's the cost of that, right? So it's okay. My choice to stay with who I am right now is absolutely legitimate. I would always love my coach to ask me, wonderful, what's the cost of not changing? What's the cost of staying with that, right? Okay, so before we move on, anything else to share? Any questions? Anything more in the chat? Because if not, we are going to open a little bit of a space. Now, we don't want to discriminate anyone. This is a space also for the practitioners. If you have any more questions, you can voice them out or you can put them in the chat. And also, I'd love to give some space to those people who are aspiring practitioners and would love to join the certification as well. Have you got any particular questions that you would love to ask? So let's allow just a few moments to see if there are any questions.
Well, people prepare their questions. I will be sending through the chat more information about the LCP, information about our certification dates, your LinkedIn, Zana, so everyone can find you and connect and make the community bigger, and our email in case you want to reach out and ask anything. But please go ahead and ask whatever you need to know if you're a practitioner or if you're not a practitioner.
Wonderful. Okay, let's see if we have any questions. Everything is a good question. So anything that might interest you that you want to ask in the space before we go and we kind of finish with the last bit. What if an organization is not ready or mature for LCP? How do we build credibility on that level? That is a very good question. I'm gonna share the answer from my own experience. Once again, it does not have to be the answer. It was just an answer for me and for my own practice. So I would normally find someone within the organization who still I can see could be a potential ambassador for that work within that organization, right? So everything happens on an individual level. Right? Everything starts with an initiative from an individual. Now, whether that person is an HR head, whether that person is another decision maker. So I usually go from, let's see who are the decision makers, and then we kind of going down in terms of their potential influence to bring that work, to advocate for that work in the organization. And in that sense, I'm always ready to give that LCP for free, to give that experience for the sake of the experience. Now, on a larger scale, it's either going to work in that company or it's going to work somewhere else. Or if it's not going to work anywhere, you have just given a gift, something like that, to one individual, and you have supported their own development, and they will spread the impact and the effects somewhere in the organization. Right? And I'm investing 90 minutes of my time to actually do that, right? So find one person who you still believe can be an advocate and offer that experience to that person. Now, here again, remember I said before, I have my own opinion about the self-evaluation. I would rather go with a full profile than offering an experience of the self-evaluation, especially if that person is not sure whether they want to bring LCP within the organization. Why? Because by giving them self-evaluation, I'm going to take away from the full magic of this approach and might not impact them in making the final decision, yes, I want this, right? So I'd rather go for the full profile and then work on our relationship to see whether they consider that's valuable. It hasn't happened to me, in full honesty, that I've ever done LCP and somebody was kind of on the other end. Okay, I found something new. I've seen a lot of resistance, I've seen anger, if you like, but I've never seen indifference on the other end, right? So if the organization is not ready yet, start working on helping them to become ready. And identifying an individual could be a good first step. What else? What else do we have? What do you do when a client has a bad relationship with their boss and will not consider their feedback at all, as all other respondents' feedback was aligned? How much of the boss's feedback is about themselves? There is something I use every time when it's really hard for someone to accept something. I'm using the 98% 2% truth, right? Which means facilitating the resistance. Okay, I get it. Yes. Oh my God, look at the other feedback that you received and this boss gave something completely different. Okay, now I'm going to ask a crazy question. If there was just 2% truth about you in your boss's feedback, what would that 2% be? I have never found anyone who, faced with that question, says nothing. Nothing. He's 100% wrong. Or she's 100% wrong. No. It's, again, it's hard. They might think, they might sigh, they might breathe, whatever, but they will find 2%. And that's a little kind of how do you say that in English? A door, no? A door hole, right? Just to peek through and think, okay. And then we build it from there. Do you have advice? Do you have advice for getting started as a practitioner? I do. This is not a coaching session, so I'm allowed to have advice. I do. The advice is incorporate LCP into everything that you're selling and never sell it as a separate thing on top of your services. Because your clients will always start thinking about the budget and they will say, not this time, maybe next time. Okay? So don't do that. Are you selling 10 coaching sessions? LCP comes within those 10 coaching sessions. That's it. That's it. It's a must because it's the way it's, and I'll tell you when it's easy to function that way, when you believe in LCP, when you know that it shortens the coaching sessions that you're doing with your clients, when you know that it's going to give you information that otherwise you could spend 15 sessions and you're not going to get to those information. When you know that it will bring value to your client and to you as a coach to facilitate your work with them, then it's easy to sell it that way. But if you're thinking, it would be lovely if they take it, I'm going to put it on top, most of them will say, no, thank you. Next time, not now. Right? So I don't leave it as something to, it's not negotiable. It just comes. It's the way I coach. I coach by starting with LCP. Right? So that's a story that I had to say to myself to be able to approach my clients that way. I would love to answer this thing. I'm wondering if the LCP will work with a Gestalt coaching approach. I'm not capable of answering this because I don't know a lot about the Gestalt coaching approach. So I'm just going to kind of stop here. What this question inspires me to tell you still, because I am a coactive coach and I love to use a lot of body and what we call geography there, I can tell you that LCP can work when you are bringing more than your head, when you're bringing your body, your emotions, when you can walk the mat, even with your individual clients. You can do it even online, asking them to close their eyes and walk that profile in all sorts of directions and kind of bring more than your head. Now, if that has any link to Gestalt, because I know Gestalt influence is a little bit coactive, then good, but otherwise, there's somebody much better probably than me to answer this question. Oh, we had a swamped executive who took the LCP and felt totally demoralized by the results. Have you found a good way to navigate this? Well, again, I would say process, right? What's your emotional response to these results? And if we park for a moment, all the goals and all the actions and what needs to be done next and stuff like that, let's just stay with the emotions that this profile of yours brought for you. And let's just stay with those emotions. Let's see what's here. Let's see where are you feeling that in your body. Let's see what might be fears generating from this. Let's just work with emotions and let's process the emotions. Sometimes we hold an idea that we have 90 minutes to debrief this profile, you know, in a perfect scenario, 90 minutes to debrief this profile, then I'm going to allow my client to digest it a little bit, a follow-up session to set the goals. But hey, these are human beings sitting across us. They have their own stories. They have their own emotions. Sometimes things don't go in that perfectly planned way. Sometimes we have to put on hold the actual looking at the data and just work with the emotions that have popped up for that person while looking at their profile. And I think we need to allow time. I think we need to allow time. Okay, wonderful. I'm going to stop here because I'm seeing the time. One last thing, yes, I do LCP before any other session. So I start with LCP. And many times I will have a setup session before LCP, even for the individual, because it's really important to set them up for success in terms of which evaluators they are choosing. It's not that you're going to tell them, but it is that you're going to bring in a little bit of their intentionality. Who would you want to get feedback from? Who is important to get feedback from, right? Notice this is going to be something really important for you. This stands a good chance to be a game changer for you and your leadership. Who needs to be invited into this process to give you feedback? So use the 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be a full hour to set them up for the process. And then the first thing is the debrief and then the rest of it. One last bit in the following 10 minutes that we have before we close the webinar is the third element, coach's mirror, right? And here I have to give a credit to Jerry, who is part of the faculty, for inspiring me to come up with these questions. So one good thing, one brilliant thing about this community is that we never stop learning from each other. We never stop sharing. And that makes us better as a community, right? And that's something that I personally appreciate very much. It has helped me build my practice and build my knowledge and love and passion for the LCP. So one thing I truly believe in is that when we receive any profile of our clients, it has got a little bit of our own story, of course, because human pain is universal in the end. Right? We all have our own story, but human pains are a universal thing. And so we see this profile and it tells us something about ourselves. And we can even step into that trap that says, oh, I know what this is about, right? I know, it's so easy to go there, right? And then what's needed is a little bit of intentionality on our end. I have worded it into glimpse, gift, and guide. What glimpse into my own identity does this profile offer? Meaning when I look at my client's profile, what's in it about me personally, right? That was for me a great question that Jerry shared. And I thought, oh, of course, there's something about me personally in every profile I have put a hand on so far, right? But am I conscious of that? Am I dealing with that intentionally? That's the actual question, right? And then the second thing is the gift. What is the gift in it for me? Of course, there's gift in it for the client. It's all about the client. But you are co-creating that conversation with the client. So in your preparation, you need to be aware of what's the gift in it for me, right? And I can speak from my own experience. How bold am I going to be in debriefing this profile with my client? Or am I going to come from my high protecting tendency and making sure that I show up as very clever and competent, but maybe I won't rock the boat or offer something that I think my client won't like or that I think I don't know enough about, right? So there's something about noticing what is that profile inviting you for in that sense. And then finally, as a kind of a guide, a very non-attached guide for that session, who are you choosing to be as you are supporting your client? I don't know if it's ever happened to you or if it will happen to you as a future practitioner, but it has certainly happened to me many times that I'm all about this profile and have I done a well enough prep, and will this going to turn out to be okay because it's really important for me. I'm only just starting with this client, when in fact it's how do I want to hold space for this person, because they're just about to hear something really important for them, for their life, for their leadership, something that's going to impact them, maybe a lot, maybe for the years to come. They're going to come back to that profile so many years afterwards. I still come back to mine, to the first one I did. I still come back to that one, right? So there's just something about who do I choose to be, right? So I'm inviting you to think about these three things, all of you. If you are already practitioners, to maybe think about which territory out of these three, which territory do you feel requires your deepest attention in some of your upcoming debriefs, right? If you're now preparing some of the debriefs, you might want to ask yourself these questions, right? What's in it about me? What's the gift for me? And how do I want to show up? And for those people who are considering to become practitioners, I would love to invite you to imagine having frequently that kind of experience. Imagine the learning for yourselves as you debriefing the profiles of your clients and actually taking it as an opportunity for your own transformation with every single profile. That's something that I find really amazing in the work that we do. Okay, so we are officially done with the content. And in the last 5 minutes that we've got, I will ask you to put in the chat, what are you leaving with? Yes, Ebru, yes. If you do the training and certification, your own profile is included and you get feedback, you get a debrief. You even get a mentoring on how to do that for your own client later on. Okay. Yeah, I love this. More confident this is the right way. Of course. Of course, it's the right way. Of course. If we are having coaching mindset and we have done and we're still doing our own work through the universal model of leadership, I would be really surprised if we can get it all that wrong. But the thing is to put your heart and your commitment into studying these things, but also into experiencing them in your own leadership, into continuing to be clients as well as practitioners. Reintegrated. Okay, lovely, lovely, lovely. Wonderful. Yes, it's a relationship of co-creation. Absolutely. So probably after this, you're going to see also some things on LinkedIn, as we love to speak about this work, to try and get more people into the community. But my own idea here and kind of commitment for myself, I really want to start a conversation around how have we been incorporating LCP into our own practice. So if you feel like it, if that's something that you like, that it's okay with you, when you can either start that conversation on LinkedIn, or if you see us starting that conversation, feel free to build on that conversation. Because this is really about, I would really love to hear a lot of ideas for which we don't have time in the webinars, but to actually hear a lot of ideas how people are incorporating LCP into their practice. You're going to help seasoned practitioners and you're going to help new people to get inspired. So we kind of share the inspiration from our good work out there in the world.
I want to say thank you, Zana. It's been amazing. Your passion is contagious. We are so blessed to have you explaining this and bringing this message of compassion, love, connection, and the way we do this work that is so different and so powerful. And of course, more to come from you. people can follow you. We already shared your LinkedIn, of course, your book, everything you have done. You're such an inspiration, and we are very thankful to have you here. Thank you to all participants of this webinar. Thank you to our practitioners. More to come to you as well for the people that is interested in our certifications in Leadership Circle. The book is there, Mastering Leadership. It's a beautiful book. Also, Scaling Leadership is available as well. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Shana. Anything else you want to share with us?
No, I'm just so happy. I see a lot of passion in the space, and I see a lot of excitement, and I'm just happy to what we have co-created here in this space. So thank you all for being here and helping us enjoy even more this work. Thank you.